creating this show. Like, this is exactly why we wanted to start something like this and start conversations about these topics, is because we want to open up a space, a safe space to kind of challenge and question why things are the way they are, and mostly based off of our own experience, because we're not experts in these specific fields. We just know what we know because of what we've gone through. Yeah. And we want to, these are things we talk about all the time with each other anyway.
Yeah.
I know it's wrong, but I don't care.
Welcome to today's episode of the Honey Toast Podcast. I'm Bri.
And I'm Danielle.
And we're your hosts for today's episode on identity, cycles, and changes.
Yes. Let's get into it.
When was the last time that you felt like you were shifting your identity?
Literally today.
Okay. I was going to say, I think I know the answer, and then you shocked me with today.
What were you going to say the answer was?
Having Lola.
Yeah.
Becoming a mom of two.
A mom of two. Yep.
But today, I mean, you can go there. Let's start there.
Yeah. Today I identified as a little bit more tired than I do most days.
Yeah. I mean, me too.
No, I think the topic today of identities, cycles, and change is just like a very prevalent conversation to have, because it's not just like in who we think we should show up as, but also where we're constantly being challenged, like the roles that we're playing as like a mother, a daughter, an aunt, a sister, a wife,
a friend,
a classmate. Like there's
an
all
employee.
I remember there's actually this one time when I went to Chapters and I just started like my self-growth and spiritual journey, and I picked up a random book from a self-help section, because I've never really been into like fictional books. I've always been like, how can I improve or change myself or understand what's going on?
Right.
And one of the first books I picked up and opened the page was like roles that we play in this lifetime. And it was exactly that. It's like, it's like, who are you really if you're not playing to be a friend, a mother, a girlfriend, a sister? I mean, whatever you identify as, there's always something that we kind of shift into. So it's like if you're at a restaurant and you're being served by a waitress, you're putting on this face and you're now being the server to somebody, and there has to be this professionalism. But then when you get out of that context, you might be cut off by that same person in traffic. You're like, fuck you, but you're like, oh, that was my waitress. You know what I mean? Like depending on the role that you're playing in the situation that you're in, you're always kind of changing your personality and identity.
Right.
But it's funny how we can kind of wear these masks and change who we are and how we act and behave.
It's actually so hilarious to hear you say that, because my first thought is on such a macro scale.
Okay.
And I feel like that's such a micro scale. Like, oh yeah, like in such a simple moment, you can totally change. Whereas my first thought instantly goes to like literally feeling like who I am as a person is changing.
Yes, definitely.
Like rooted
in radiance
in my life, and like who I am now, when I think about the version of the woman that I am now compared to the version of the woman that I was when I was 25, when I was 30, when I was 25, when I was 20. I mean, those are completely different versions of yourself. And I think that one of the most beautiful things about life is that we do evolve, and that we do, it's in our innate desire to want to change and grow and evolve and all of these things. But with that comes a lot of challenge with change.
Yes.
And so how do we navigate it? And what does that look like for each individual? And how can we navigate it with grace and be in the present and not be in fear of letting go of what was, and really embracing and being present and becoming what is and who we now are? And let me tell you, this is not just an episode for moms, but that's gotta be one of the biggest ones.
100%.
When you become a mom, for me, for sure, and definitely some of my girlfriends that I've talked to, there's a period of time that you actually have to mourn your old life.
Yes.
You have
to. They warn you about that.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
And then you don't know, and you think that you're all good.
You're just, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't know until you know. You don't know until you go through it.
Yeah.
That's a huge transition.
But a huge one. And I mean, I think that there's just so many, and, there's gonna sound so crazy, but there's this show out right now. I haven't even watched it, but I've heard about it. It's called Severance, where it's like, oh, your brain is basically severed in two, and like your personalities, and you don't know about your other version of yourself. So you like go to work as one person.
I think they got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
There you go.
I've watched season 1. I still have yet to watch season 2.
Oh, see, I haven't even watched any of it, but it kind of makes me think about like that. I'm using that as a reference point because it's kind of valid, because it's like who your identity and who you are at work might be something completely different than who you are at home, who you are with your family,
such a good
who you
reference.
are with your friends. Yeah. Like it's even though we are aware of all of those areas of our life and who we are and how we show up in those areas of our life, it doesn't mean that there isn't this identity crisis potentially when entering all of those situations.
You know what's also interesting is I feel like we don't actually realize a lot of the time that we are going through this kind of identity shift when it happens. Like there are maybe signs that you're experiencing an identity shift, like you're starting to, for instance, you're like growing from friendship. Like let's say you've been friends with somebody for so long, but all of a sudden you're starting to grow apart from them. Like that could be a sign that your identity is starting to change. Like you're starting to shift interests and values and goals, and you're starting to go in different directions. You're also starting to relate to things in a different way and have different ideas. So these are all like signs that you're going through identity shifts, and none of it's negative by any means. It's like you said, it's all about the process of evolving and adaptation, which is exactly what humans are designed to do as far as we know.
Which is ironic because even though we're designed to evolve and change and shift into these new cycles, it can feel so like foreign. It can feel so uncomfortable. It can feel so challenging.
Yeah.
But here's what I've learned. The one thing that I have learned in life is that those periods of time in our life that are so incredibly challenging and feel earth-shattering and your life is falling apart, or you can't get a grasp on life, or you don't know where you're headed, or you feel lost, or you feel confused, those are the periods of time that define us.
Yeah.
Those are the periods of time that build our traits, that build our strength, that build our personality to become the version of us that we're meant to be. So it's almost like going through these cycles is the hardest thing ever, but it's also what is most necessary for our greatest good.
100%. And I feel like there's like different degrees of identity shifts. Like for once, there's major life changes that happens that cause these things.
For sure.
Like motherhood or
losing your job,
losing something or somebody that you so much relate to and identify with. That like you just all of a sudden have to shift.
You're a new person. You become a new person.
You do.
Like when I lost my dad, I'm not even joking you. Who I am now will never be at all or even close to who I was. Yeah. Which you would never think that before. But
you don't even notice.
It's like this whole new version of myself was birthed out of that experience.
Yeah.
And then I had a baby immediately after, not to laugh, but it's just like kind of mind blowing to think about. And then I had a baby immediately after his loss. And I became a new version of myself again.
Those are two major life things that you went through. And I'm sure many people out there go through like large life transitions as well at the same time, is something like a loss, and then also a new role like a mother. Like those are two massive degrees, but you had them like at the same time.
And during COVID.
In
a city where I had no friends and no family because I just moved.
Yeah. And like not really having your close friends near you. Nobody. I mean, you had some close friends, but not like.
No, I didn't. When I lived in Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota, yeah.
No, I had no one.
Yeah.
I made a friend, thankfully, but.
Oh, a friend, thankfully.
Yeah, a neighbor.
But yeah, those are pivotal moments that shift. But it's just like, how do we navigate through those massive changes without it breaking us down? And I think there's so many factors to consider when going through something like that. Like, for instance, when you lost your father, like how did you navigate through that without going too much into?
Oh my gosh, good question. I mean, it's a combination of things. I was also pregnant at the time, so I was very aware of trying to kind of like
be mindful of this person inside
I guess so. Like be mindful of my feelings, but you can't really control your feelings when it comes to something like that. So it was very much about giving myself permission to feel when I felt like I had to. And then also giving myself the strength to hold myself, keep myself strong when I also felt like I had to.
But like, what does that look like by when you say give yourself permission and give yourself strength? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, at the time, like I said, it was COVID. We had moved to a new city. So I had no friends, no family. I was pregnant, just lost my dad very suddenly. And Josh, my husband, would go to work and I would literally sit on the couch and cry and talk to him, talk to my dad and ask him, like, why did this, not to get too, extreme. I don't want to say extreme because that's the reality of it, but not to get too emotional about it. But I had to give myself this period of time to let go of the feelings that were going to restrain me. Because I knew that this change in life of losing my dad was rebirthing something that I didn't know what it was, which was really scary. And then, of course, about to become a new mom for the very first time was terrifying.
A lot of scary things.
And I didn't know, and it was COVID, so that was scary. I didn't know what the future of life was, now bringing a child into it. But it's actually really interesting. My brother-in-law at one point called me and asked me, he was like, I have to ask you, like, how are you handling this all so well? Because I feel like everyone else in your family's kind of breaking down. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm handling it well at all. I don't know what you're talking about, but thanks. But I think what he meant by that was you find ways in these difficult and challenging times to navigate them so that you can still function and operate in life. But you also have to tune into a part of yourself that is much more spiritual. And you have to have these realizations that it's so much more than this physical world. It's so much more than this physical life. And how can I step outside of my world? How can I step outside of my life and look inward and believe that this is for my greatest good?
Yeah.
Everything that is happening is not happening to me, but it's happening for me because it's going to build me into the person that I am meant to be in this lifetime.
So true. It's like building upon layers of conditioning of who you have always been. And there's like a quote where it's like human beings, they like comfort, but you can never reach your greatest potential and grow in those states of comfort. And going through shifts like that and experiences like that, like I can only imagine. I mean, the only thing I can relate to is becoming a mother.
Right.
But going through something like that and having to mourn a life of that is something that's all you know into something that you have yet to discover what is going to become it can be frightening. And I would say unsettling, if anything, because you're having to find that balance of like acceptance that things are about to shift in a way that you have no idea of how they're about to shift, because human beings, they like predictability.
Diving into the unknown is a terrifying place to be.
It's like jumping into a dark ocean that could be shark infested. It literally is. You could get bit by a shark, but you could also not. You could thrive and find a new land. Please don't. I'm so terrified. Must have been killed by a shark in a lifetime, because that sound already is traumatizing. Or I've just seen Jaws too many times.
Maybe.
But yeah, I would say back to the identity shifts of like my own relatability, the new motherhood one for me is a massive one. And I think for a lot of women out there, because motherhood is really like a rite of passage. It is a a game changer in the world, but that's not like the only way we can identify with this kind of topic or connect to these type of cycles, because this could be in any kind of degree and any kind of level as well.
I mean, I think that a big part of that from a woman's perspective is like constantly feeling this pressure. Like you have to, I don't want to say conform, but like you have to fill so many roles and you have to act like you're all good doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this Instagram video. Oh my gosh, I have to I think I reposted it. I can't remember. But it was basically like, do you know how many times women hide in the bathroom or in the pantry in their closet to cry in the middle of the day because they just need to? Like, do you know how many times they do that and then come out wiping their face, acting like nothing's wrong, continue cooking dinner, changing diapers, making what, you know, cleaning the house, going to work, acting like everything's freaking normal after you have those breakdowns, because we can't handle it all and expect to feel normal after. Like we can't handle all of these pressures and all of these external pressures upon us without having some kind of an emotional response. But then why do we have to feel like, oh, it's all good after? Like, why is society not supporting us and saying it's okay? Like, it's okay to feel emotional when you're going through change. It is okay to feel like you have to have, why is it called a breakdown?
I feel like change too is such a subtle shift. It's almost like hormones. Like, you know, when you're getting your period, I feel like unless you're so in tune with your cycle and the shifts of those,
Love that.
It's like all of a sudden you feel like you need to burst into tears and you have no idea and you feel like something's wrong with you. But it's really just like, oh, you know, your body's connecting and communicating with you. And I'm not supposed to show this weakness. Yeah, it's time to slow down, but I'm not going to slow down because I have to do these things, which is like literally what we were just talking about in our previous episode. But it's all connected, right? Kind of all just like waterfalls into the next thing. But it's also so funny because whenever we think of a story or a statistic, I'm like, I heard a statistic or I heard this story, but usually it's a TikTok or an Instagram reel. Yeah. But it's so true, because it's like, we always say that these days, oh, I read this article, but it's usually like, I saw a TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's true.
Saw this thing.
But there's so many great relatable pieces of content out there that anyway can connect with a lot of people. But like when you were talking and you were saying like it's a spiritual thing, right? Like it's spiritual connections, it's a growth. Like what does that mean?
Well, I think that no human is brought to this earth intending to stay the same. That's not what life is about. I mean, if you look at any one human, they're going to evolve and grow in one way or another. Mm-hmm. Obviously, physically, we grow throughout life and then we shrink. But
except your ears and your nose. Apparently, those things keep growing.
Never stop. But also mentally and emotionally and spiritually, the things that transpire through your life and your life experiences are going to shift and change the way you think, feel, function, and put yourself out into the world. And I think that sometimes what happens is that when we enter these more massive shifts and these more massive periods of time, it can feel very overwhelming. But what's important, I think, is that we reconnect with source. Mm-hmm. And we reconnect with the deepest parts of ourselves and understanding, like I said earlier, like this is for my greatest good. This is for my greatest good, because my purpose in this life, in this lifetime, on this planet, in this body, is to have these experiences so that I can take those experiences and mold myself and gain strength in ways that I didn't know existed before those experiences to become who I'm meant to be. Because every human has, we all have a purpose in life. It's just a matter of whether we are brave enough, strong enough, intuitive enough to follow that path. And I think often when people go through struggle, they allow it to take over their life. They allow it to be their identity.
Yes,
They allow
that's
it
a great
to
point.
take them down. They go through the rest of their life being the person that got hit by a car, being the person that lost their parents young, being the person that lost their job and lost their home, being the person that had, and I'm not taking away from people that go through struggle in life. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone is going to have a struggle in life to some degree. And it is up to you whether you choose to allow that to be your identity.
Yes.
Or whether you choose to allow that to be the thing that makes you become the identity that you want.
That's such a good thought, Brianna. Well said. I'm like, that, I feel like that's a question that's like asked in school or something. Like, let's say an essay topic that's like, what is your identity?
Mm-hmm.
What would you answer? I'm like, that is such a tough question.
You know, it changes.
Like, what's the first thing you'd say? You'd probably be like, I am a mother.
For number one.
And then you would follow that up by a profession or a hobby or an interest. For me, I'm a mother. I'm an artist. I'm a sister. So you're identifying roles that you play in this life versus like,
who are you?
That's such a tough question. Like,
but I will say this too, for me personally, something that has helped me to answer that question for myself is my spiritual work.
mm-hmm.
Is the work that I do, my very, very intentional work that I do with myself and my coach, my spiritual coach, because what that allows is a space for me to only think about that question. In that space, whether it's in my own time or with my spiritual coach, it allows me these moments in time to really think about that and nothing else. Because those
when else would we have those moments, right? Because you're just in that identity. You're in that cycle. Like
constantly.
For instance, I have to just keep going back to motherhood because this is the phase that you and I are in. We're both young new moms.
Of course.
And this is like beyond, and we're both full-time at home. Like this is beyond, it's not just full-time. It's like beyond full-time, right? So you don't have a moment to really think outside of yourself. And this is kind of connecting back to the episode that we just had talked about before, which is really kind of fulfilling that role in having to be so present all the time that you kind of neglect that self, like that identity of self. And I see this like right now with myself, like you have to show up constantly, but I find myself like struggling to do that all the time. But that also is my identity. Like this is the moment of my life. They're only going to be young for so long, and then they're going to be grown up and out of the house and adults.
Like that quote says, you're going to know your kids as adults for a long time, but you're only going to know them as little kids for a very brief moment.
A short time. And it feels like forever.
That's
like, when they're first born, you're
that's
like,
why the other quote, the days are long, but the years are short. I could not. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of quotes that I'm like, once becoming a parent, I'm like, whoa, now I get it.
They really hit you hard.
Like it takes a village.
It seriously, oh my gosh. Like this is again a whole other topic. Like taking a village and creating a system that works. Like we're going to get into this like another time because I don't want to go too far off the path of like the topic we want to discuss today, but just like having that support system and community. And women today, even like as young mothers, cannot function without having some sort of support. But yet a lot of the times, a lot of women don't, and there's no system to have that. But yeah, I feel like maybe there's this bigger disconnect that we have because we are putting so much pressure to have a definition of that phrase. Like, who am I identifying as?
I do feel as though one of the things that must be carried and must be prominent and prevalent and at the forefront through every cycle and through every shift and through every change in life is authenticity. Because when you're going through these extremely challenging moments and challenging times in life, you always have to bring it back to like, what is the most authentic version of myself and how can I nurture her? And how can I show up for her in the ways that she needs in this moment? And I don't want to fight her. I don't want to show up for everyone else when I'm going through a hard time, because I think naturally often that's what we do as women and as moms. But if I feel like I'm going through this massive change, if I feel like I'm going through a new cycle is beginning, how can I best show up for myself to be my most authentic version of myself? Because that is, I believe, that how we can transition through those moments and through those times with the most grace. Because who are we if we're not authentic? If we're not authentic, we are fighting ourselves the whole way through. We are in a battle with our own selves all the way through every change and cycle.
You know what this makes me think of?
Tell me. I want to know.
Makes me think of when I first was starting to date Gabe. And you know, when you like start dating somebody new
and you feel like you need to be someone that you're not.
In a way, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Like they like you because they like you, but like you want to always show up as the best version of yourself, right? So it's like you cannot let them see the flaws. Like you cannot let them.
Don't fart.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like because you, I don't know. I guess it's like the reward or the attention or like the love. You want the success,
of course,
of the best version of yourself to reap the rewards. For in this case, like the love, the attention from Gabe. Right. So for me, I'm like, I had to hold in my gas
for months.
Literally, I would leave his house with cramps because I was like, I gotta go flip the laundry. Like I would come up with the weirdest excuses. You had to flip the laundry, all right? Because I'm like, I cannot stay here a moment longer without exploding. I'm like, I can't let. Obviously, now you're like engaged, have children. And eventually, like I have to be authentic.
Yeah.
And having IBS or whatever it was I was experiencing at the time. But at the end of the day, he loved me for it.
Right.
But it's just saying like we have to, we feel like we have to shift and shape ourselves into these roles and like, personas to receive. And usually it kind of all boils down to the same thing, which is love in one way, shape or form or another, whether that be like reward or attention or anything. But to me, that's just like what popped in my brain by being authentic. And
it's true.
And playing a role of like a new interest, a love interest, a girl, or
I could not agree and relate more. I mean, I think that when you are going through changes and when you're entering new experiences, it's only natural to be like, I don't want to say nervous, but like
you're almost judging yourself in that moment.
Like,
because you're like, if I was looking at myself,
right,
what would I think of her? I'd be like, ew, cringe or whatever.
Ew, cringe.
Like,
I know, yeah, for sure. And like, and you're questioning your own self and you're being like, when you, I mean, how many times were we getting ready to go out or go do something and be like checking ourselves in the mirror, be like, and I'm like,
you're nitpicking at the tiniest, smallest things.
What the F does it actually matter? Because who I am as a person is 100% going to reflect the energy that I put out there and what I'm going to get back.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said sums up like a massive topic going into like, again, I'm always going to bring it back to beauty standards and beauty images too, because that's just like where all my past expertise and focus had lied. But like, yeah, being concerned about how we present ourselves on an external level and then the attention we receive. And again, you're playing a role, an identity, and nobody has any clue of who you are and what you have to offer and what your personality is like, because they're looking at you instantly at a glance. And that's even like Instagram and social media. Right?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a whole other.
That's a whole lot. We got
so much to talk about to dive down. But here's one thing I will say. I feel infinitely grateful for somehow having parents that raised me to not feel like I had to be someone else. I don't know how they did it. I really don't. I've asked.
Describe that a bit more. Like, what do you mean by that?
I was tall. I was a bit weird looking. I was kind of pudgy. I was weird. I was artsy. I was into theater. I was not like the typical, for all of you not watching on video, in quotations, cool girl.
And there was no
okay?
social media though at this time too, right?
No,
so
there
was like you
wasn't.
were not on social media
No,
looking at
of course
other
not.
people.
And I'm talking like when I was like 12, 13, 15,
Yeah.
14, whatever. But I never felt less than. Ever.
That's amazing.
Like, no, I had an older sister. Did I maybe have that little bit of competition or whatever with her? I think that that's natural. But I never went to school feeling like, oh, like, I don't think people are going to like me. I don't know. And maybe that sounds conceited in a way, but I was always a weirdo, but never felt like it. Like, or maybe I did, but I was all right with it. Like, I went to school every day being like, oh, I'm going to be friends with everyone. I'm going to chat with everyone. And I did. Well, I literally
powerful,
went into,
especially as a young teen.
Yeah.
And
like
in today's society, like I can't even imagine growing up with social media, like what young girls have to grow up with today, because I can only imagine like the turmoil one must go through, not only as a parent watching their young daughter go through something like that, but also as a girl, like even a woman today in society, like having to look at social media and like be bombarded with, now being in my mid 30s, what am I targeted for? Anti-aging cream. If you see this meme and you used to own this blow up chair in your room, it's time for eye cream. It's time for this, like, where it's like, oh, maybe it is. And you're starting to notice wrinkles more or gray hairs more. And that's fearful, because not only are you changing your identity from who you've always been and seen yourself as physically, but now you're shifting into like different roles and like cycles of your life that you no longer identify. We're like, oh, you know those memes where they're like, I identify as 18, but then I hang out with an 18-year-old and you're like, oh God, I'm definitely not 18.
Yeah.
Where it's just like you connect with it because you don't really realize how fast the time's going, but also it's just like time really does shift. But it doesn't mean that because we're in a different phase now than when we were 18, we're not just as challenged with that change than we were when we were 18, or like a young girl now who's going through something like comparison and social media.
So I think the question is then, like, how do we find support internally and externally when going through these stages?
Yeah, 100%.
Or
where do we find support?
Right. And so I think, honestly, I think that that's a massive part of why we started this show, because you and I have gone through every stage of life together.
So true.
And we have flourished, but we've also had massive struggles. We've had some really, really hard times within our friendship, as individuals, as women, as partners. And I hope that we can explore all of that.
Oh, we will.
You know, as this season and as the show goes on. But what were our solutions? You know, like, how did we get to be who we are today and where we are today? And I don't, like, honestly, I mean, we were just talking about it in the kitchen. Like, I looked at Danielle and I got emotional because I was like, I would not be here if it wasn't for you. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. And that speaks volumes to what kind of support women can give each other. That speaks volumes to what we truly need in our hearts and in our souls and in our minds and in our lives as women. Like, we are aching for support through these changes, and we can give it to each other.
Even if we're not aware of it, because I think it's such a natural thing for women to take on everything.
For sure.
Because we can handle anything. We can.
Resilient.
Wow, that was actually pretty good. But we could actually, I think it's just a natural trait for women. Like, take on. And I don't think we really realize, and you said this to me before, like, how much your soul needs it, and how much, and even like one of our best friends, like when we get together, and every time she comes and gets together with us, she's always like, I needed this. Like, my soul needs this. And same thing with me when I'm with my girls. I'm just like, I didn't realize like how impactful this support system is.
Hence-
But I feel like when I'm on my own, I'm like, I could do it. I'm good. I'm okay.
Right,
I'm on my own.
right,
I'm a homebody.
right.
I'm independent. I'm on my own. And you don't realize it. And then something happens where it's just like,
I feel like you're
I don't
breaking
know.
down.
you break down, but in
Yeah.
different ways. Like it comes through different outlets. It could be
Yeah.
a snap at your partner. It could just be like you're exhausted and you get sick. There's so many different
Right,
expressions of your body or your world telling you that you need support, whether that's through sleep or through friends or through mothers or family or whatever that looks like. But like you were going back to your original thought, like this community and kind of creating this show, like this is exactly why we wanted to start something like this and start conversations about these topics, is because we want to open up a space, a safe space to kind of challenge and question why things are the way they are, and mostly based off of our own experience, because we're not experts in these specific fields. We just know what we know because of what we've gone through. And we want to, these are things we talk about all the time with each other anyway.
Yeah.
And our girlfriends. And I think they're important conversations to be had.
Hence why we started the Goddess Calls.
Yes.
Every single month, as often as we can remember, like doing these calls with our girls, either on the new moon or the full moon, and asking each other really deep questions so that we can show up for each other in support.
The deep questions are so important though, because when you don't see,
How was your day?
Yeah.
Fine.
What'd you do last week?
How's life lately? Good.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to break it to you. That ain't it.
No, there's no deep.
That ain't it. You have to literally look at the people that are important in your life and say, what kind of changes are you experiencing? How are you feeling about them? And how can I support you through them?
Yeah.
Because we're all going through it.
And then also just building that trust, being able to trust somebody and finding a person or a space where you can lean into and be vulnerable with, because vulnerability, like we kind of touched upon earlier, is just like, it may be discouraged and kind of seen as a little bit of a weakness, but it is just, it's a part of our makeup. It's part of our human makeup. And it's a part of building us to our best selves, which is ultimately what we all want to be and experience and in alliance with each other. Anyway, I think there's so much more to talk about when it comes to identity and these cycles that we shift. Like we could go on and on about cycles when it comes to like women and their literal cycles being.
That'll be another.
That'll be a whole other episode and
or season. Who knows?
We're excited to really bring on some experts and some other amazing people who can really like who do this work for a living and really share some wisdom. Because we just want to continue to grow and be our best selves. And we're just so grateful to have you guys here with us and share these thoughts and have these conversations that need to be had and need to be spoken about. So
we hope that you tune in for next episode.
Yeah.
You can find us on all standard social media platforms, all listening podcasts, whether it be audio or visual. We're on both. You want to take a peek.
Yep, we are at the Honey Toast Podcast, and stay tuned. We release an episode every Tuesday, and we are so grateful to have you here with us. We're very excited to bring you along for the journey and the ride, and make sure to send us a DM or just comment on Instagram. We're very active over there, and we would love to hear from you if this resonated with you at all, or if you have any questions or you just want to spark a conversation. Brie and I are very active on there, and we would just love to connect. So make sure you reach out and share with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a guy friend or anybody in your life that you think would resonate with this type of topic.
Pet,
anybody.
The dust bunny in the corner of your room.
A little dust bunny. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and we look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Honeys out.